again, the Russ Clippers thing, I was someone that I thought that they would bring him along slowly. I thought they would bring him along off the bench, and that the idea here was not just to throw him into the deep end of the starting lineup and seeing what works. Because of that, I was like, I think this can work. I think this can be, a good change of pace guy who can bring them some up-tempo play off the bench, kind of the vision they had for John Wall. He can, make them play a little bit faster. He can get paint touches, and this is a team that desperately needs paint touches. After 4 games, I think I'm wrong. But part of it's usage. Like, they're using him, 107 of the 120 minutes he has played so far have come with Kawhi. 98 minutes of the 120 minutes he has played so far have come with both Paul George and Kawhi. And my theory on this is a good change of pace player. And I think that if you limit Russ a little bit more, he can still be a useful player. The Lakers, for whatever didn't work because Russell Westbrook was on an enormous salary cap number, he wasn't a abject disaster off the bench. He was just inefficient and turned it over a little bit too much. I would think that in a contending situation off the bench, it could have been a little bit better, but I'm just like, these first 4 games have been rough. And then it culminated last night in this Warriors game where they were winning, I think, with 8 minutes left in the third quarter. Mm-hmm. And then it just totally turned. And the optics on this were not ideal, let's say, because the entire game, the Warriors basically just played Draymond Green on Russell Westbrook, and Draymond didn't guard him. Draymond straight up, Russell Westbrook would be outside the 3-point line. Draymond Green would be in the paint, 15 feet away from him, daring him to shoot.
Probably should have got a couple 3-second calls if we're being honest, but yes, that is how they defend it. Like the one clip that everybody was sharing, like Draymond 100% should have been called for 3 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? If you don't get called for it,
you
don't get called for it, you don't get called for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, right? So I thought it was fascinating, and I loved Draymond Green's explanation after the game. I thought it was one of the most interesting answers I've seen any player basically give this season for a number of reasons, because, first and foremost, he explained how not playing defense the way you're taught to play defense, because obviously not guarding someone is not the way you're taught to play defense.
Right.
It can be hard just in terms of your reaction and your instincts. There was a clip that I shared online where Jeremy Lamb just straight switched. He auto switched onto Russ in what was essentially almost like a Spain pick and roll. Mm-hmm. And because he did the auto switch and nobody was communicating, Mason Plumlee got behind Draymond and just threw up a dunk, and Draymond just looked at Anthony Lamb and was just like, what are we doing here? Right. Yeah. This is not the scheme. But the other thing that he brought up in this post-game interview, and I'm just going to read the quote, and I shared the video last night as well. He said, everyone always judges Russ's jump shot. What that does to you mentally is tough. It was more so mental than his shot. He's been shooting the ball well. I think he's been shooting the 3 at 33, 34%. Mentally, it can be tough. I thought we did a good job sticking with the game plan, and we were able to muddy the game up for them on the defensive side, and it worked. And then he kind of got asked to expound upon that, because the reporter was like, wait, you're saying that, it can be hard for Russ when he's wide open? And Draymond then went into it and said, it makes you think for sure, because you're open every play. You're taught in basketball that when you're open, you take the shot. But if you're open every play, you kind of start questioning yourself.
Yes.
I thought we did a good job executing. And isn't that just the most interesting thing, especially coming from him?
Yeah.
Because Draymond Green has gone through this.
Mm-hmm.
He has gone through multiple playoff series where he was not guarded.
And admitted exactly that too. The mental aspect of it. Yeah.
I think it's just so interesting when someone like him, who is so smart, and I think he's genuinely one of the smartest basketball players who's ever played basketball, point blank. Mm-hmm. For him to just go into depth on that, I think is so interesting. What were your thoughts when you watched everything that happened last night with the Clippers, and what are your thoughts on the overall Russell Westbrook experience at this point?
Yeah, last night in particular, playing off him that far, and I 100%, 110% agree with Draymond. It's not only a quote unquote like disrespect tactic where that also gets in somebody's head, but like he said, it's you feel like you should shoot. You're an NBA player, so you have the confidence in yourself, but you're also in this new situation and you have these two stallions next to you on the side and you're trying to get them involved. There's been all the stuff with you shooting jumpers late in games for the last few years in LA. And even before that, if you think about just even where Russ is, like if Russ had been there for a year or two, I think maybe we have a different conversation because I think he shoots some of those. But I think the fact that he had just gotten there, there's this narrative about him that he probably shouldn't be closing games, that he's just he's a liability in the half court at this point. Like, I think the timing of it makes sense, but certainly I just am very curious to see how this Clippers offense, if he's going to play as much as he has going forward, which I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Ty Lue changes that after the Warriors game, just because it's not all his fault that they've lost 4 in a row or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's certainly something that can be changed on a minor scale, cosmetically to help clean that up. But certainly, I just don't see how that half court offense is what it can be. And Kawhi has been phenomenal unless he's able to be ridiculous like he has been for the next 2.5 months and PG is able to stay healthy. Like, they need to be able to, again, it's basketball in the 22nd, almost 21st century. I said 22nd, where like there needs to be spacing, and Russ just does not make sense in those type of lineups with those type of stakes right now. Russ is at this point in his career is a guy that you put in the dog minutes of games, whether it's the start of the second quarter, start of the third quarter, or end of the third quarter, to get you to keep you afloat, to provide energy. Like when the game gets tight and it's nitty gritty NBA basketball, I just don't see where Russ provides much help right now for a team of that stature. His inability to shoot, just his, like you said, his turnovers. Like I just think the risk isn't worth the reward to try to have him infiltrate these closing lineups when basketball is at its most tense, I guess, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. So let me give kind of 2 thoughts on that. So the first thing here is my alarm goes off because I set my alarm just in case.
What time is it right now where you're at?
8:30 in the morning. We're all good here.
Okay.
It's not that early. So the first thing that I do want to at least talk about is just Russ's overall activity levels on offense. He is a guy that tends to stand still. When he doesn't have the ball, he just kind of stands on the perimeter. I actually think that the best thing for him would be to watch Draymond Green tape now. Go and figure out how Draymond Green makes the spacing work when his teammates, have the ball and he gets a kick out and the team doesn't come out and guard him. There are 2 things he does really, really well. First and foremost, Draymond Green will find cutting angles. There was a clip I pulled last night on Twitter where Russell Westbrook had a perfect angle into a 45 cut where he could have gotten a pass from Norman Powell right at the elbow, essentially, taken a dribble, probably forced either same side help from Anthony Lamb or forced Draymond Green or forced one of the rim protectors to come over and help. And frankly, as Draymond Green says, like, those reads when you're in a defense where you're not guarding someone, they aren't natural necessarily for players. So you're not going to make the natural right decision every time when you are doing something that is so different from what your typical strategy is. So, he has to be willing to cut. He has to be willing to hit that 45 cut, hit that baseline cut, move more often, just make it harder for the offense. Second, if he gets the ball and sees that nobody's coming out on him, the thing that Draymond Green always did so well is he would run toward a teammate and essentially start a dribble handoff exchange.
Yep.
Right. And just force action. He would force communication issues with teammate or with opposing players. Maybe it's a dribble handoff into a short roll for Russell Westbrook. He needs to become on offense more of a Draymond Green style player, in my opinion, in the half court. I think that's how you can make this work, but that's something that is so different from what Russell Westbrook has done in the past.
Yes.
And that's what makes this so challenging. And also why I think that throwing him just straight up into the deep end and also not having him do these things and like plan to do these things is why this has been such a mess so far. So I just want to bring up, so before these 4 games that they have lost, the Clippers had won 10 of 14 games. 9 of those games had been on the road. They were clearly rolling quite a bit. And the numbers are terrible. Like I'm trying to find a way to sugarcoat
No, they
it.
are.
The numbers are really bad. In the 120 minutes that Russell Westbrook has played, the Clippers have a negative 8.6 net rating. The bigger issue, though, is that it gets worse and worse the more good players you add. In the Russ Kawhi minutes, they are a negative 10.4. In the 98 minutes where Russ, Kawhi, and Paul George have played together, they are a negative 14.9 this season. These numbers come via Daryl Blackport's great site, play-by-play stats. With Kawhi this season, the numbers on and off court are absolutely like astounding. They are phenomenal.
He's ridiculous.
And if you look at the Kawhi Paul George numbers, just alone, basically, they are a +7 per 100 possessions this season. If you take Russell Westbrook off the court with Kawhi and Paul George, they are a +10.4. So in these 4 games that Russell Westbrook has played with the Clippers, it has forced the Kawhi and Paul George like net rating number essentially to drop by 3 points per 100 possessions over the course of the full season. That's like insane.
Yeah.
Given how many games we've played already. So
right.
Far.
Yeah.
Like,
and they've only played 4.
It's just absolutely crazy. So I am very worried about this is what I would say. And I think that they need to get some practice time. And I think they need to like implement and get Russ's, it's hard because like so much of this requires like rewiring who Russell Westbrook is as a player.
Right.
And I tend to think that great players are capable of that in some way. Like Carmelo Anthony became a spot shooter over the latter portion of his career. It's just that the body wouldn't hold up defensively anymore, right? Russell Westbrook has the tools to still be an impactful player. He's not what he was athletically when he was 25 years old.
No, but he's still athletic. Yeah.
But like he's still athletic. Like there was a play last night where Jordan Poole like had to try and cut off his angle once Russ was downhill. And it was just like, there's no chance. Like he absolutely can't do this. So I say all of this, if only to say, I think that they just like, this is early days in this, and I don't want to completely rule out that this could get fixed, but it won't get fixed if they continue to operate in this manner, I think is where I'm at.
No, I agree. A couple things. I think, like what you were saying with the stuff that Draymond does when people leave him open, like you said, works into a DHO, dribble sideways to set up for somebody to back cut on the baseline, just things like that. And I'm not comparing Hamidou Diallo at all to Russell Westbrook, but one thing that Hamidou Diallo does well that I've always wondered why guys who aren't as athletic don't do it often, eat up the space the defenders give you. Like, charge them. They're not, if you're charging full speed 9 times out of 10, they're not going to take a charge. They're going to just jump. And Russ is still athletic to finish over, to get fouled. Hamidou does a great job of just like, okay, you're going to disrespect my 3. I'm going to drive into you. And that still eats up space and still causes attention from the defense, and you're able to maybe do a dump off pass or something like that. Like anything is better than standing. And I agree with you. And that goes to my second point is I just think, and maybe a name comes to mind for you, But I can't think of one, especially like in recent basketball history. Guys who have had the ball in their hands their whole lives.
Yeah.
I just who is there one that's kind of like adapted to that? Like you think like I just never James Harden will never do that. Luca will never do that. Uh John Wall never like you know what I mean? Like there was never like I think that's when those guys kind of start to lose it because they
Yeah.
know nothing else. And it's years and years of like you said, of trained instincts. This is how I play. And I think the rewiring, it's too late in the process. I just don't think that stuff comes into their minds in the middle of battle.
Yeah, like I mean, like is Chris Paul an example? Like Chris Paul went from being, like in New Orleans, he was like a domineering point guard,
Yeah.
right? And he went from being that guy to playing a little bit more off the ball with James Harden, now plays a little bit more off the ball with Devin Booker and, obviously Kevin Durant there now. But it's different because like Chris Paul is like maybe another one of those guys that has a case as being like one of the smartest basketball players that's ever lived. Right. So like Russ is, I think that, every great Hall of Fame basketball player is a genius in their own right. But in terms of off-ball movement and floor spacing and things, Russ is not that necessarily. It's tricky. I think it's very, very tricky. The thing I will also just say, I don't think all this is Russ's fault. No. I do not like last night. The worst stretch that occurred for the Clippers in that game was the final 2 minutes of the third quarter. And that was like mostly Terrence Mann's fault.
Yeah.
And I love Terrence Mann. I do not mean this as like slander at Terrence Mann. I am an enormous fan of his. But like over that, there was like a 1 minute stretch essentially where he was responsible for like 9 points off of Jordan Poole threes. It was, Jordan Poole ends up getting, he fouls Jordan Poole on a 3-pointer. He has a miscommunication with Norman Powell in a switch or a potential switch that they didn't switch that leads to a Poole 3 in transition. Then he like crashes the offensive glass from 50 feet away and it leads to a 2-on-3 run out. And then when Poole misses that 3, he doesn't get a body on Jonathan Kuminga, who gets the loose ball, and it just leads to another kick out for a Jordan Poole 3. Like, again, like I love Terrence Mann, and I think Terrence Mann will be a much better option in general for ball movement within this starting lineup.
Yeah.
But, this is to say that this team has other issues beyond Russ, and he is not alone at fault in these 4 games. It's just that this is such a fundamental shift in what they've been doing that it requires a lot more work in order to fix it, I think.
And with that, and this is my last thing on it, I still just don't understand for the role that Russ has had so far. I just don't understand why they even wanted him so bad. Like I still think like Reggie Jackson was.
I mean, I think the answer to that is like pretty. It's Paul George is his guy.
Yeah, right. But like at a point, it's just like Reggie Jackson is better tailored for that, like that role. Like if you're gonna play Russ that many minutes, and you're gonna play him that often with Kawhi and PG, like you got to have. I just think like. I don't know. I guess I don't know if they didn't want to pay Luke Kennard anymore, but like even if you did like point Luke or like had Paul George bring like I just think there was ways to take that step that they needed to take, and I don't know if they outsmarted themselves. I don't know. I just didn't understand the point of bringing. I know they needed a point guard, but I just don't know how much you can do with a point guard that can't and won't shoot. I just don't know what that does.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, especially one where the book is so out on Russ at this point in terms of just like in a playoff series, you don't guard him, right? That's it. And I don't know, man. I think it's going to be pretty tricky.